Hello legends, today I catch up with my friend and club member Volodymyr Katanskyi. Volod is an incredible guy, very smart, was ahead of the times with remote work, was doing it long before COVID. He shared a really incredible story of being forced to migrate from the Ukraine during this current war to Australia in 2022 and how that's impacted his life and what his experiences were like there. Me and him discussed some really important business topics like what makes great entrepreneurs great, the future of the offices and who's going to be in them and who's not, and the importance of making mistakes and allowing your team to make mistakes to learn and improve. He's a very smart person with a very strong mind. I think you're going to love this episode. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast, Vlad.
Hey, hello.
My Ukrainian brother. How are you?
Oh, good. Started my week in the middle of the week.
Yeah. Why is that?
Busy. Well, the weekend was pretty busy and I don't feel like I had a weekend.
What did you, work-wise or are you?
Yeah, we've been releasing a few major updates for our products. And it's been like always, client pushes to the Friday. Friday is sacred, no releases. But sometimes rules are...
What do you mean Friday sacred?
Well, normally you don't want to push anything on Friday because you know that team is not going to be available on weekend if something goes wrong.
Yeah, I actually just learned that.
Really?
Yeah, because when we were onboarding the like-minded business drink and wine community onto BOA, which is like Australia's largest women's business community. And we had just made, they were coming on the platform, but we, at the same time, we were about to push out an update on the platform, and it was a Friday or it was a Thursday at the time, I can't remember, but the team was like, no, we definitely should not push this out because if we've got all the like-minded bitches community coming on the platform and something goes wrong over the weekend, none of us are at work. So I had just learned that myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it takes time, especially for, business owners who didn't have technical applications. We always recommend to release on Monday because the whole week is ahead. And sometimes they're like, oh, we're losing 2 days. Well, those 2 days, nobody is actually available. And it could cause much more harm for your customers because it's easy to frustrate customer.
Yeah, very easy.
Yeah.
But do you want to give, so you're obviously from Ukraine. When did you come to Australia?
I came to Australia in July 2022. I don't remember exact date, around 7. Obviously, I was pushed by those events. It was pretty hard to live in Ukraine, as I also have some medical condition. That was my ticket out of Ukraine. I have diabetes type 1, and there were an undersupply of the medicine that I rely on, like it's a vital medicine. So they offered like lower quality, and that was like a last straw for me. It was already hard to manage the business, actually. Just to give a quick overlook, I don't remember the nights when I wasn't wake up because of the alarm, because rockets might come to the city I was residing in. I was like in one city, then in another. And it was pretty stressful. Like, do not have sleep. You can have these, intrusive thoughts because something might get wrong. Like one day you think like, I don't want to go, to basement or like hide, because when alarm is, sounded, you go like down somewhere, like you hide, it's in the middle of the night and you're like, I gotta have a sleep, or you just don't care. You're like exhausted and you think like, what could happen? I'll die fast, or I'll just gonna be cut by glass. That's nasty. Probably I should get up. So it's very dark thoughts, but in the end of the day, you get used to it. I mean, you would be surprised how people are, how they are adaptive creatures are. I mean, at some point before I left, like it was already July and the war started in February, you start like ignore a lot of things. Like right now in our building, there are a lot of neighbors causing the fire alarm, and I don't care. Until I see fire, until I see smoke, I'm not gonna move anywhere, because it's very hard now to spook me with anything. Like it's like a different level of reality perception.
Yeah, but I think that's really so true, and people don't realize until they go through it, is that how adaptable we are as humans, like how we are able to get used to living in certain situations. Like even like this is obviously very different, but like even jail, like people live in jail for like 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, longer, whatever it may be. They do adapt to it. Like they get used to living like that and it becomes normal. Like, God forbid ever living like that, but you don't want to. But it's just amazing to think how adaptive humans are and how time impacts us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And what was it like when the war started?
Oh, it was like very nasty. I mean, that was like February 24. I remember that day really well. It was like 5 a.m. in the morning. And I thought it's a fireworks. And I was like, nah. And everyone actually in Ukraine were thinking like whether it's really happening, because we had a lot of news, controversial news. Our government says like, oh, if everything is fine, blah, blah, blah. And the Western medias, especially US intelligence, said like, well, the concentration of the, Russian forces on Belarus and the Russian borders in a huge numbers. So they were like controversial because like Ukrainian government doesn't want to have a panic. But what Western world says and West world intelligence is quite opposite. And I was dumb enough not to listen to my wife, very wise woman. She said like, let's just wait, maybe in Portugal somewhere, like why should we sit here? And I was like just waiting for some important documents, and I was like, they asked like, because the consent correspondence, we miss it. And here we go. So it was very stressful. There were a lot of shootings, like anti-air defense. It's like, I don't know, almost every second you see like shots in the air where they attempt to, intercept the rockets. The next few weeks was like living in the zombie apocalypse movie. Panic, people everywhere, guns are given to like civil people. I have some training. Don't ask me why I did that, but I had some training. I know, like, if you pick up the game.
Now I want to ask you.
Okay, so I had the training because before I travel, I thought like, if there's gonna be a crazy situation, I need to have skills to to know what to do with a gun. So and part of the training that was done by special ops guy, he said every time you pick up the gun, you actually kind of sign an abstract contract. You're given a license for your for you being killed, because every man with a gun is a threat to anyone else. So if you pick up the gun in such times and someone sees you like sniper, they won't have a second thought. You're done. Click.
Yeah, it's like a license to be killed.
Yeah, to be killed, right. So that's why I was like, I was not taking anything, even though there was like, again, intrusive thoughts. Like everyone is like, oh, how are you going to defend yourself? I mean, what I can do, it was like rational mind that was calming me down. And I was thinking like, I have analyzed a lot of scenarios. That's crazy time. And after these 2 weeks, we even had tanks actually coming to the city. I was in Kiev, in capital. In the northern part of the city, there were already Russian tanks, helicopters, but then it was repelled back. And it was like very, very stressful. And the idea was like to get on the train and get to the west. Yeah.
So were you living in Kiev?
Yeah, I was living in Kiev for a long time. So that's why I was there.
How do you think, I assume, I'm not sure, but I assume that's your first and only kind of war experience?
Oh yeah, I don't have any experience.
And
before.
how do you think that's impacted you now as a person, having gone through that, seeing, a city invaded, tanks being given guns, and I assume saw death and things like that?
Yeah, well, it changes a lot in the way you become, I would say, it's not like depressed. You become more aware of the situation. You perceive, as I said, reality in a different way. You start paying attention to things previously you wouldn't pay attention to, such as like how people behave, what they do, or some, events like warnings, like these alarm warnings, like fire alarm warnings. It just makes you like think different to this experience. And overall, I can't say for myself, but for many other people, that caused mental trauma. My mind kind of like allows me to focus on something else, like work. My business helped me a lot because I can focus. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you start like getting into this state when you recall the events, and it's exhausting. So I don't know how to, translate or interpret this, but this experience, I wish nobody would ever have. That's it. It's just not normal. It's stressful. And it's also like you constantly now in the thinking process, what would happen? Like, I know it's silly thing that I'm gonna say right now, but even in the safe country like Australia, I unconsciously started to consume a lot of information and analysis of potential threats while being here. I'm not gonna name like whatever it is, but you see the point. I started to think like, okay, geopolitical aspect is extremely important. Economical aspect is extremely important. Like what's happening in this country, I'm not gonna ignore, because when I was back in Ukraine, my thinking process was, no, it's impossible. Russia can't do this. They can't. I mean, it's insane. It's 2022. Boom, they did that.
Well, the way I look at the world these days is that, first of all, anything that's happened will happen again. Not even can happen again. It will happen again.
Yeah.
Because last time it happened wasn't the only time it happened either. There's, especially today with so much information out there, like so much false information, to be honest. Like, it's like you just can't really, you don't know the reasons behind things. You don't know any of the information. You don't know what's real, what's false. And so all of a sudden, like, human beings, even good ones, can be put in situations where they're making decisions that, they think is really good and they think it's right, but it might not be. Or, it's just, I really, like, honestly, if someone said they saw an alien to me, even if they look like a crazy person, right now I'd probably believe them. I've really got, like, I almost believe nothing anyone says or nothing I read, but I'm open to it. It's like everything's fake now. Like, I just can't, it's hard for me to actually believe anything, but I'm open to it being real. Like, I'm like, if that was real, I would, I believe that could be real. Sorry, is more the thing.
That's a good vigilance, I would say, yeah.
And what was Ukraine like before? Sorry, I didn't mean to get straight into Ukraine and the war and whatnot, but what was it like before the war? What was it like living in the Ukraine?
Well, it was pretty convenient, I would say. Well, where I gotta start from? Ukraine, it's very different in its parts, like Kiev, Lviv, and Odessa, big cities, and Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk in the past. There's all big cities. They're very different from the rest of Ukraine. It's like a saturation between the capital cities like Sydney and complete village. So Ukraine was a very convenient place. The taxes were like very low, which all entrepreneurs enjoy. You can get away with like 6% taxes and run like pretty decent business. The cost of living was great. You didn't have much obstacles for travel. Like, it was pretty good place. The problem with Ukraine, if I would go to bad sides of things, it's basically like law is kind of gray area. It doesn't really fully operating like I can see here or in other Western countries. And it was just convenient place to be there. Like, being a Ukraine citizen was very convenient. You can do pretty much anything like anyone else can do, but you can also accumulate a good amount of wealth with this tax system. You never complain about.
So it's actually a good place for entrepreneurship, would you say?
Yeah, or starting. Like, what I just reflect right now, if you would ask me, like, young Australian and young Ukrainian starting at the same timeline, moving along, like from, let's say, the way they graduated till, and throughout 10 years, it's very different people. Young Australian, unfortunately, with this system, like, just mathematically, it's like anti-investment with the level of taxes and costs of everything in the economy. They can't accumulate enough wealth even probably to buy fully the house. Ukrainian person will be able to build the good amount of passive income and maybe retire by that time if they, let's say, have similar path. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Australian definitely can't do that. Definitely not. I reckon it's currently our biggest issue. But your business. So did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or can you just tell me more about Worklair and I guess why you started it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I tried to be just an investor. It was like silly because I was just in a university. I didn't realize like all the books I'm reading I can't trust. I was a young person. I was like reading one of the first books was by Robert Kiyosaki, and I was like, oh, that's so nice. I played this cash flow game, but
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes, exactly. It was pretty. I still think it's pretty good for starters, but I wouldn't believe it as is. And I tried a lot of different ventures. I've been very entrepreneurial, but then I realized, well, the city I'm from is Sevastopol, and by the way, Russia invaded Sevastopol first in 2014, so I moved twice, first in Kiev, then outside of Ukraine, and I was trying to do some things, but it doesn't. When you start in city like Sevastopol, it's very hard to get out. Like the purchase capacity of people there is very low, so basically it's very hard to run any business, and there's like this thing like mafia, people who are established in the good spots, they won't let you in. So it's very hard. And this is where I realized, okay, I can't get out of the city. I can't get out into any business without any capital. I have no connections, and I don't want to be like associated with these dodgy people. And I realized like software engineering was like the way. So I rewired my brain towards like, okay, put aside entrepreneurial thing. Let's try this out. And I enjoyed it because the only person to blame in this game is yourself as engineer, like you and computer. And trust me, 99% of the time, I would say 100%, if AI listens to us, whatever, the computer is right, you're wrong. So it was so easy to blame myself, learn from mistakes. And at some point, I got back to entrepreneurial thing because I was dealing with other people like managers. I started seeing issue here, issue there. Those issues are so silly. We're wasting time, we're wasting money. If someone from the management do this just little bit extra effort, little bit, it would change so much. Nobody ever wanted to do so. I was in the enterprise, and you know how it's an enterprise, like it's always like that. Things are moving very slow, and inefficiency is not felt until like some critical point. And this is where I started to think like, I do not want to be part of the system which ignores the issues and then inadvertently demotivates anyone. I mean, I was very ambitious. I wanted to, I want to avoid wasting time. And I wanted to be like productive and make everyone who works with me productive. And I found I can't do this. If I'm going,
you can't do that working at like a large organization.
Exactly. I work in large organization, even smaller. I mean, I've been working with other companies. It's the same issue, just on a different scale. Yeah, it's truth that in a small organization you can get to some point when you can have an impact and enjoy the work. So one of the values when I founded my own company, because of that, one of the main values I put is just for any developer in the company to feel like it's developer's paradise. Because if developer is happy, they're gonna do magic. They will do much more. You will be surprised. But it's very easy to frustrate developer, like legacy tech, boring stuff, or just management who don't care and just want to do business. And this is a very tricky balance, because business people are very different from technical people. And it's always like this hidden struggle. So I realized I want to be the person who's been there, a software engineer, but still be on the like management side and see how it goes. And it goes well so far.
But tell me more about that. So it's easy to make developers unhappy, and you get the most from developers when they are happy.
Yeah.
How do you make developers happy? Like, what is the ideal environment for a software developer?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Where I gotta start from?
The issue I have with making developers happy, or really making anyone happy, is that when you try to I feel like people think happiness comes from the wrong things. So for example, when you look at like the big tech companies, they're like, oh, we're going to make all our staff so happy. They're going to work from wherever they want, have unlimited holidays, do whatever they like, do anything. Doesn't really matter. You're happy. But they have the highest staff turnover. They literally have the most staff movement.
Yeah.
So obviously that's not making people happy. Otherwise they would stay at that company.
Yep.
It's basically buying people. But when you start buying people, they go to the highest bidder. So it ends up just a race you just lose everyone.
Straight to the point. You're absolutely right. You can't buy software engineers. First of all, it's a big misconception that business people think they can buy engineers. First of all, engineers, from the math standpoint, calculative standpoint, are much smarter than, I would say, majority of entrepreneurs. And they will... Yeah, I mean... I can tell you this because the person who is given like too much freedom, like you give an example, they will eventually start to think like, oh, how can I benefit from this situation and work for someone else in parallel? They have very tricky minds, and I know why that, because I also had these thoughts. I mean, when it becomes too convenient, you get to this point. So it's actually a very fragile balance when you shouldn't make it like inconvenient. Instead, you should find what they really look after, and this is the key. So I have some staff who is working with me since 2015, and they don't want to leave. They actually would fight like with teeth to stay in the company because they love it. The reason is first of all, we figure out that we need people who here is not just for money. Those I like categorize as mercenaries. The people who like seek more, and for them it is like the people they work with. Like what's are the type of people? Like, do they want the same or similar goals, or are they just, just here for the job? So those people who are here for the job, you can't change their mind. They, as I would say, they are not good material for social engineering. They can't be part of the ship. Like in this movie, Pirates of Caribbean Sea, there's like guy who's started to become part of the sea. We need these guys like who's actually already,
So what you're saying is you need, like, your core team needs to be people that are in it, like they're really in it. They have like ownership over it.
Exactly.
I always say, like, anyone can find ownership in a company, but it does take time. Like, you'll have new staff members join the team. When they join the team, they're not working with ownership of the company. It hasn't become yet a part of their identity, a part of who they are. That can take a year. Like, honestly, I really believe it takes 2 years for someone to be like, I have had enough time in this company where I have actually evolved and changed as a person for the better, and I can see that myself. And therefore, this company is giving me this, it's giving me a greater sense of self-worth and purpose in the world. And so I just want to attach myself more to this company because I'm better off with this company than I was without it. Now, you can get someone over into the team really happy in a year, but I think it takes 2 to really have them for, like, they are the company.
Yeah, exactly. You're generally right. It takes time. I found the shortcut when I was like finding those people. I was interviewing them myself. They know I'm a tech guy, I'm CEO, and they, first of all, they feel no gap. Like, they think like, okay, this guy's important. This was their first thing. Like, why CEO? Interviewing me in the first, in the first stage, and then I'm saying like it's the only stage. And I'm saying like, I'm going to also technical interview you. And this is like breaks their stereotypes because they use like to have this chit chat with HR, then someone else, blah, blah, blah. And they go very formal technical interview. Here it's just completely breaking the patterns. I'm saying like, look, I was a software engineer like 1, 2, 3 years ago, and I'm still coding, whatever. So no waffle. Kind of this conversation is like, okay, that's interesting. And this creates rapport instantly, and it makes more honest conversation. They see like, oh, this guy was just like me, and he's probably trying to make it business. And it opens boundary that normally are closed. So people are very closed initially. And I found it helps a lot. And also it's easy for me to see if that person is the right person. Obviously not everyone can afford that, but I would say the technical person establishes the initial contact. They save so much money. I still don't understand how current, the HR process for technical work works, because to me, it's another ways that can be optimized. Because searching is one thing, it's like lead generation, right? This is obviously helpful.
Searching.
Yeah, finding the candidates.
Finding people.
But when you start talking to them, or when you start evaluating the CVs, for example, right? What the HR person knows, they see these keywords. It's like, magic words for them. Abracadabra. They don't understand what this technology entails, whether it's connected with other technologies mentioned in what's important. It's only a technical person can do that. No matter what people would say, it's very, very hard to get this knowledge.
But go back to what actually makes development staff happy. Like what is, so we can't give them everything because that you can't buy loyalty. Yeah. So how do you, what is the perfect, in your opinion, perfect environment for software engineers?
Well, first of all, trying to give the technical or developers enough freedom, the way they feel they actually impact the product. So they're not just doing the task they have been given, but they actually fully accountable and responsible for the work they do. So as an engineer, I could take it away from my team. I can say like, we're gonna do this, and that. Plus I have expertise. I can actually vouch for that. But then I'm not doing this. I'm saying like, what do you think? And then they like, oh, I want this, and that. And I was like, cool. Now let's argument it. Provide arguments why. And then I'm kind of coaching them to be also business oriented. I'm saying like, you want this tag because it's fancy, right? But we can't find people for that tag. And we gotta have troubles with this. Like, do you see how this is gonna work? Like in the end of the day, we won't have job. You won't be able to code here. So I'm trying not to share with them knowledge, entrepreneurial knowledge. So they start thinking as a business, even though being tech people.
But see, that's kind of what I was saying. You're almost helping them grow as people, as business people. It's not just, hey, I'm going to do this because I love the look of that technology. It's like, okay, well, let's actually talk through it. Maybe it would be the right decision, but is it the right decision? And you're like having an open debate. And I think the key to that is when you do have these open debates with team members, and that's encouraged, so long as it's encouraged in a way that's not preventative of progress. But like, you don't want a bunch of no people. Whenever you say anything no, it's like, okay, get out of my way, But as long as it is encouraged, what it does is it means, like, when there's a final decision, you can actually put it on them. You can say, so now make a final decision, but it's yours. You own it.
Exactly.
Like, when someone needs to own a decision, they think twice about it. The second they're liable for it, and you said before, you think software engineers are smarter than entrepreneurs. I'd love to know what you think makes, because I would agree, but I'd love to know, but it depends what type of smart, because I'd love to know what you believe makes a smart entrepreneur. What makes a strong entrepreneur? What makes them smart?
So that's something that requires additional comment. So I think they're smart, but in a very narrow niche. They're smart in the way it connects to the technical aspect of it only, obviously. And they're very calculative. That means
the software engineer.
Yeah, software engineer. So basically, software engineer creates solution for the business. They actually create the business from the point when it's technical. So if it goes like, sales, marketing, etc., they might have solution that might help, but their ultimate vision is understanding how all these cogs are moving. And often entrepreneurs don't even think about that. A good example are edge cases. So I have often the feedback where a client says like, "Oh, why it takes so much time? It doesn't make any sense." And that doesn't make any sense if you do not analyze it to the depth that engineers did. And then when you realize, oh, I want this case covered, you slowly go the full circle, getting back to the point when you completely agree to this estimation. You start to think like it's even good, because there might be other edge cases that accounted and you couldn't think of yourself. But the good entrepreneur, in my opinion, is exactly to know, let's say, your role in the system. So let's say if I'm non-technical entrepreneur and my technical people telling me something, if I'm opposing it or trying to create an obstacle, it's not smart of me because I'm not expert in this area. So it's very necessary to make sure I value the experts in this domain who is running my company. And if I want to know something about that, I must be more inquisitive than dictating how the things should go. Because as I said, it's very easy to get developers frustrated. It's not like they develop Glitch instantly, but over the time, it's a scale of hate and love, and you don't want to move to hate because it's very hard to get back from it. They start to think like, "Oh, this guy thinks he's the smartest person in the world," and it's like
It's so you think it's important that developers don't think that the entrepreneur is like, it shows himself or herself as, "I'm smarter than you, so listen to me." Like, you got to avoid that. But it depends what you classify as smart, because there's all different types of smarts, obviously. I mean, there's no disputing that. But what I think, and if you were to classify the traditional sense of smart, like, attention to detail, focus, maths, science, all that type of stuff, you give it to the developers. But when you talk about the ability to control people and impact the world, that's an entrepreneur's thing. And by control people, I mean, really, your job is to organize human beings to accomplish a goal that will have a positive impact on a larger group of people than even just a small number of people that you've aligned with yourself, basically, that you control. So to do that, and then to do that, also, there's an incredible risk. So as an entrepreneur, like, you also, your appetite for risk has to be, or ability to at least manage the stress associated with the risk, has to be very good, or at least become very good over time.
Yeah.
So you got that risk, you've got people skills and control. And then the big one, I think, is the ability to strategies, the ability to identify patterns. Like, you can look at an industry and be like, this is missing. Or you can look at your own life and be like, why don't I have this? Entrepreneurs do that. They identify patterns, and then they've got the motivational skills to actually motivate others to join them on that path. So, business people I would argue that those are the most important. They don't have to be the best managers. They don't have to be the smartest. They don't have to be the best, at whatever that specific tool is. What they have to be the best is the best people. They have to be the best people.
Yeah.
You know, they might be introverts, not extroverts, but even introverts can identify a pattern, create a strategy, motivate people, get people in line with what they're trying to do, and impact the lives of others. Like, that's what makes business people great, I reckon.
Yeah, you described really well the archetype that I read from the E-Myth book, the visionary. And I think this is the best archetype to start from, by entrepreneur. And this, you're right, like this is a high level vision. So entrepreneurs look very, I would say surface, but very important to identify what makes business run, while engineers are basically focused on something. So this is about the link. So as long as you can have your engineers more like a friends, the easier it would be to communicate and find in between the solution that actually makes your business work. Because you can identify the patterns, which are great, but then let's say if the engineering aspect is bad, then you might lose, GTM time or strategy. So there always must be a balance. Or if, let's say, engineers want to build something, this is my doom, by the way. I build a lot of stuff because I like to build something, but it doesn't make any sense. So I rewired myself, like relearning the fact that I need to find demand first and then build. So it's very hard if you come in from not visionary, but from expert aspect.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always say it on this podcast, there's no one path to success. Like really anyone can do it. I've met some of the most successful people in the country, all of which that have different personalities, different style. Like success can be for anyone. But still, you need to be able to identify an issue, whether it be at the start or not. You need to be able to identify a pattern in the world, or identify a way that you can improve the world, or a way that you can improve and profit from the world, that is business, and have the courage and work ethic to actually do it. Yeah. And I actually think, now that I'm talking, now we're getting into this dialogue, I actually think that the biggest things are the courage and the work ethic, because, you're right. Like you can have great engineer style people who become great entrepreneurs. You can have great Steve Jobs visionaries who also become great entrepreneurs, but you can't have anyone who doesn't have the courage to start and do it, and the work ethic to actually make it happen. Yeah. To be successful. You can't. So really, it could be said then that the great entrepreneurs, their greatest skill, what makes them smart, is courage and work ethic.
That's very true. I mean, they also like understanding the strengths and weaknesses, finding the right people, and I would say instilling courage in others to take the responsibility as well. Because if you stay in the too formal area, there is not much transparency. This also, in my opinion, kills something that I, again, use as social engineering. So we had a culture in the business where, everyone knows that I will always come support in any dispute, either it's between the client and us or wherever, like the truth and honesty. It might sound a little bit like to, let's say how it's unrealistic to some people, but being ethically like strong in that point makes a huge difference. When people see what decision you make, they start developing an even deeper level of trust. So they know like, okay, we failed here. He plays devil's advocate. That's fine, because in the end of the day, as long as you can communicate what's wrong and they see like, okay, this is our mistake, they're still happy with this resolution. Because mistakes that are made by your team, by your business, and playing devil's advocate is the toughest thing. You are sustaining damage, financial damage, and it's either shared by the team or by you as a business, and or could be both. It's the best, like, because you share, consequences. And it's always easy to point to someone, but as long as an organization, you like think or instill the thinking process that we are in the same boat, we share the burden together, we make decisions together, we have different roles. This is, I would say, the atmosphere that makes people stay. And even in hard times, like in COVID or during the war, we had like these hiccups that make people understanding you as a business owner, which I rarely seen in other companies where I worked in. People usually don't care, like, okay, you don't have money, buy. Here I'm selling something like, look, we don't have much workload. If you want to be on the lower, workload, you can stay. We're working hard on picking up on pace. If you don't want, well, we'll part way as friends and you can come back to us. Some people even I mean, they agreed. That's fine. Some people even get out of the company, work for other company, and then got back. It was like knocking door very hard. Like I mean, I changed my mind. I'm just getting back, and tells a lot.
When I was younger, if anyone ever left, in my head, like I was like, screw you, you're never coming back. I was like, I don't want you. But then as I got older, I realized, fuck, I'm an idiot. I was like, if they want to come back, and they're good. To be honest, no one ever we've had 100% retention for 5 years. But so this is a long time ago. This is over 5 years ago. But if they ever did want to come back, which did happen, I did change my mind because I was like, you know what? What's a better, what makes you look better than someone tried to leave and then they ended up having to come back? And then you tell the whole team, you know, see what happens? Yeah, people think it's nice over there. We're the best. You know, this person wanted to leave. Now they want to come back, you know, like, oh, you know, maybe I won't let them. Maybe, you know, I will let them just to show everyone, look, they always come back. You know, it's actually a great way to be. Like, you know, it's easy to be petty.
Yeah.
You know, like, fuck that person. I'm never letting, you know, screwed us over. But actually, it's better to be like, you know what, come back in. You know, it's a better example of, it shows that you're empathetic as a business too. But aside from that, it shows that you're the best place to work.
Exactly. And you know what? The person who returns this way, what they gonna do? Oh, they having a second chance. They gonna work much harder, much better. Yeah. That's what I've seen. It's just always like that.
And they know the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so funny. Do you know the problem thing? Sorry, the making mistakes thing that you were saying. It's so true because mistakes are just so expensive, and mostly they're expensive in terms of time. You know, they can be expensive in terms of cost of things when you're dealing with, like in your case, like technology and things, and obviously that's our case now often as well. But really what I find mistakes to be is expensive in terms of time. But at the same time, no one learns as well. No one remembers anything, no staff member and yourself. You never remember anything as well as when you made the mistake. You know what I mean? You feel the like, oh, damn, like, that wasn't the right answer. I shouldn't have done that. Like, when you get that feeling, you'll never make it again. And if you disallow your team from getting that feeling, you know, they're not going to grow because so they're not going to remember, okay, that was a mistake. Because it's different when you actually learn the mistake or are told the mistake.
Yeah.
You know, but then at the same time, if you're which I feel like this year I was obsessed with the idea of letting the team grow through mistakes and really pushing them to do everything they wanted and whatever, which, to be honest, look, I think it's worked out pretty well. But in many cases it's been quite frustrating for me because at the same time, like I told them, like I said, do this, you know, that's the right way. Trust me, I know. And then, no, you know, this, I think this. It's like, and then, you know, it's like I haven't even got the time to argue. So it's just like, you know what, do it your way. I don't even care. Like I'm going to focus on something more important anyway. And then a month later or a week later, you come back, you're like, oh, I told you. Like, you know, like, and you know, like when that happens, I always say, like, I told you so.
That's funny.
Yeah, I did tell you. Like, you didn't listen to me. I don't know what you want from me. But it's annoying because, you know, it caused an issue, then you have to solve it, or it delayed things. But at the same time, it's good because, like, they're like, okay, they're like, I'm not making that mistake again. And B, next time he says something, I'm probably going to listen.
Yeah, that's really right. It's like investing in education and mistakes. I found, I totally agree with you on that subject. Mistakes helps learn much better, but only if this mistake is accounted. So when I started doing interviews, I actually did something interesting. Sometime in the past, I tried to get to the company top tile. I didn't have enough experience to pass this interview. And I was like very close. And I found throughout this process, I was rejected. But I found through that process, they've seen how I'm thinking. And they've seen my potential, but they still rejected me. And then I applied the same methodology they did to others. But I said, like, I don't care if you do the mistake as long as I see how you think. And not only people appreciated the opportunity to make mistake and recover from it, they have a chance. They know that this is not like life and death situation. It's never life and death situation. Well, at least in the business we do. And
when you go to war,
exactly. Well,
is life and death.
Yeah, you can't make mistakes there. Yeah. But here, you know, like they made a mistake, they become better. And they realize like, oh, I can do the mistakes as long as I'm accountable and I can recover, and as long as I do not repeat the mistake. So every time we hire people, we have this probation, which is also, I think, part of the success of having people retained. I'm saying like, you can make mistakes. I don't care. You're learning. This is the quality of learning you will have. If you are not making work to not repeat your mistake, if let's say something that is like relatively simple to like note,
you're not learning from the mistake.
Yeah, if you're not learning from the mistake, this is the reason why we usually cut people from probation or fire. If you're learning, even if it's slow learning, it's still fine. But we need we need to see you doing the work on yourself, like making notes. I'm telling everyone, like, make notes on the mistakes you did. So next time you go to review, like, they do some code, they give it to review. Like, make sure you simply do not repeat at least what you've been pointed as a mistake in the past by your technical leader. Because technical leader, they making them sad is easier than you think, even though they don't show this emotion. And the worst thing they can see, if they, on the previous review yesterday, last week, last month, pointed out to some mistake and you did it again, they think you just hate them and punish for something. So, I mean, even though it's not, it's just in their brain. And it actually makes it, it's not respective behavior to your team. You just waste their time.
Yeah. I mean, but people need to learn from their mistakes, because honestly, if you keep pointing out the same mistakes and they keep making it, they're probably just not smart enough to be in your team.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they'll take it as like bullying. Like, oh, why are you bullying me? It's like, I'm not bullying you. You're just the only one making the mistake every time. Like, so, hey, I want to get back to actually your story, because we started on it and it's a really interesting one. So, you left Ukraine because of the war and came to Australia in July 22.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about your diabetes. So you've got, what's it called? 1 diabetes? Stage 1?
Type 1. So there are 2 types. I'm not going to go into theory, but yeah, it's type 1. It's like more rare, more harsh.
So type 1's the bad diabetes.
Yeah.
And have you had that your whole life?
No, I just acquired this as a gift at 29 years.
You've had it your whole life, yeah?
No, it's 20. It happened, and
how old are you
when
now?
I was 29. I'm 33
it actually
now.
happened when you were 20. I thought you were joking.
No.
I thought you were maybe 29 years old and you had it for 29 years. So how old are you now?
I'm 33. So it's 4 years ago.
Oh, it just happened.
Yeah, it's happened actually during the COVID. So it's like, that's why I'm joking. It's a gift. It's like a bonus.
Oh. Yeah, man. So I reckon there's a lot of things being gifted during COVID. Yeah. But so you just randomly got it. How did you know you had it?
Oh, well, it's pretty nasty. You feel exhausted. You drink a lot, you go to toilet a lot. It's not normal. You start feeling like
you're peeing a lot.
Yeah,
you drink a lot of water and you're peeing a lot.
Yeah, it's like it shows like something is wrong, and you get exhausted very fast. I mean, I was training and I was like wrongfully attributed to the fact like maybe I just exhausted because I have like a lot of training daily. Sometimes 2 times a day. I was training a lot.
Physical training.
Yeah, calisthenics. And well, the way I found it, actually, I was updating my military documents and I was doing analysis, there's blood work, etc. And I actually hate doing the blood work. I didn't do it for 10 years because I had this phobia for needles. I don't have it now, by the way. You know why? Because needles are my friends now. Yeah. So when I did this like random analysis, they spot too much sugar in urine, and then my wife was like pushing me, go do the blood work, and I was like so resistant. I was so stupid. And anyway, I boot the sensor actually first before doing blood work. I was like, I'm an engineering guy, I need to see numbers, and it's like on the pain level or phobia level, it was like acceptable. So I put the sensor, see these crazy numbers, did the math, like this is not good numbers. You gotta go to hospital ASAP and do this, how would say, like you need to clean your blood, with this stuff. So then I went to blood work, and the doctor saying like, why are you here? You gotta be in the hospital. So straight after that, I went to 2 weeks, and I've been like, this whole, let's say, retreat with needles and other stuff. Cleaned my blood, and
what, they have to get the glucose out of the blood, is that it, or what are they cleaning it from?
Well, they're cleaning from acetone, because when you have high sugars for, let's say, a relatively long period of time, you are intoxicating your organism with acetone, and it's called ketoacidosis. And you need to clean the blood because you can't normally clean it itself. So they put this, drop thing, and then you start using insulin like religiously, because this is what makes your blood glucose down. Your organism, you're doing like your job for your pancreas, part of your pancreas, beta cells, because it like went retirement for some reason. And
so your pancreas basically stopped working
Part
as
of it,
well.
yeah.
And that's what caused the glucose increase caused diabetes.
Yeah, my pancreas do not produce the insulin.
So what year was that? 21?
I mean, years?
No, what year did you
Oh,
get?
yeah, 2020.
2020.
Just COVID, yeah, just rising.
Did you get COVID before it, or did you get
No.
the vaccine before it?
I actually never got COVID except this January.
Really?
Yeah, I was very cautious, like having the mask, like getting a, the part of the beauty of my business, I'm working remotely myself, and my team working remotely. And when the COVID started, we actually been one of those lucky businesses that never sustained any damage. Like we just shrugged the shoulder, well, we just worked remotely.
Because you were already remote.
Yes.
And so now you've managed to live pretty normally with the type 1 diabetes. It's just obviously a big headache.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that I'm very disciplined person myself. I know created the schedule for myself when I eat at the same time, train at the same time, sleep at the same time. So when diabetes hit in, they say like, well, you just need to now do insulin injection before you eat. And given your schedule, you are already good, because for many people, it's incredibly hard to achieve, this timely thing. And the sensors, the technologies we are blessed with, helping a lot, because the main reason why people were dying or having complications out of the diabetes, they're missing the very nasty 2 events. First is like a death sentence. It's a hypoglycemia. It's when your sugar goes too down. Let's say you miscalculated, you put too much insulin. Your glucose goes down very fast. At some point, it starts making irreversible damage to your brain. You can become vegetable if you have a lot of such events. If it goes even...
If you take too much insulin.
Yeah, if you take too much insulin and you didn't eat something sweet when you reach the critical points. So we have alarms. I have, it's yelling. My wife also has integration, and it's like vibrating on her watches, calling me, calling anyone else. I mean, it was like happened actually on the golf course one day. I was ignoring it, and like some other people like calling me and said like, your wife is, wanted something like, oh, well, yeah, okay.
And you said that it was your ticket out of Ukraine. So were men not allowed to leave the Ukraine?
No, it's very hard to get out of Ukraine because of the, let's say, medical conditions you must have are very severe. And with type 1 diabetes, I have some complication I want to talk about, but this was like the key. The complication that was developed, that was the key, allowed me to get out of the country legally. Because for anyone else who has even just type diabetes 1 but don't have any complications, just started, they are not allowed to do so.
So like do you have family there at the moment?
Yeah, well, some part of the friends and family are in western of Ukraine. Some of them are left Ukraine. So yeah,
so a lot of the men you'd know would have gone to war, like are in war at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of my friends who went there. Some of people already unfortunately deceased. So yeah,
I'm sorry to hear that. And so you got to Australia, and what was that like? What made you choose Australia? Great choice, but what made you choose it?
Well, first of all, my wife has relatives here, her brother. And we've been selecting between few options, and I wanted for her to have a support, so that's why we chose Australia. And actually, as a bonus, I hate cold weather because another option was Canada, and I was like starting to think like that. I mean, always having these layers of all this and then being sick. I hate cold weather. And I was like, oh, Australia is so great. Especially, I mean, I've seen so much probably promotional material about Sydney's. When we came in July, I was a little bit frustrated because it was like bad season, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" I mean, I thought it's always sunny. I mean, I lived for some time in Miami, in US, and I was like, "Oh, that's great! Like eternal summer." And I thought it's like, yeah, but then I realized it's a little bit tricky.
Well, I think it's important to have we have every season, but we just don't have them too extreme, which I think is really good. Like our winter's not extra. It's not like Ukraine, for example.
I wouldn't say you have winter, to be honest.
Well, it's winter for us, but it still gets cold. It gets cold. Whereas like so I think that's a good thing. But if you do want to like I think the hot place to go, like hot technically in weather, but also just in general, is Queensland. If I was moving to Australia, well, I'm looking at where to go. I can't go to Sydney, just outpriced everyone. I don't want to go to Melbourne because why would I come to Australia and go to Melbourne? It's just there's no weather or beaches there. There's really not that much in Adelaide, and like Perth's too far. I don't know what's at the top of the country. But then there's this Queensland. By the way, I'm not ripping all the other states. I hope that's the thing I'm ripping on. I love all of Australia, but I'm just saying if I was looking in, migrating here, you look at Queensland. Got this beautiful sunny state with good priced property, happy, relaxed people. Brisbane's a great city. You've got all the beaches running up it, like beautiful people, like good weather all year. I was in Brisbane on the weekend at that Carlisle Hotel because the fit out for our Brisbane clubhouse is finished. I was looking at it and it was 28 degrees and sunny. I was by the pool. I had a great time. I was thinking in my head, anyone that moves to this country and does not move to Queensland is honestly crazy. So,
look, I totally agree with you. The only thing is that my wife loves cold weather, so we found Sydney is just great. I mean, and to her point, it's much shorter period of seasonality when it's cold. So it's like she's actually giving away a lot of months of heat, It's fine. I mean, I like it. And to be honest, like what I found, this is great here. If I would compare, Sydney is a very calm city. It's very different. I mean, I traveled a lot. I've been in Asia. I lived in Asia, like Bali, Bangkok, Hong Kong. I've lived sometime, like New York, Miami, Los Angeles. Like I've been in big cities. They're all very, very busy. Sydney for me was like, it's a big city, but it's not busy as a big city.
No, Australia is still, like it's not a country town, but when you compare it to the rest of the world, like it really is. You know what I mean? It's not as fast paced. Like even when you talk to, when you hire people, hire someone that worked in London or New York. Watch what normal is for them in terms of working. Their normal is working real hard, fast paced, focused, locked in, bigger hours, like. In Australia, it's like, it's a very relaxed culture, which is wonderful about the country.
Yeah.
And it does serve us in many ways, but we're definitely not a large place. We only have 25 million. I think it's 25 million, isn't it? Or 27 million, something like that.
Growing.
Yeah. Across a very large land mass, it's still a very small place. But I think that's what makes it beautiful. Like I've always thought, like the worst thing about Australia is that it's so far from the world. But the best thing about Australia is that it's so far from the world. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
It's the best and the worst. But you were saying that COVID didn't impact you because you were already remote.
Yeah.
So what made you do remote in the first place? Why was that? Why you set your business up, and how did you see that could be a really positive gap in the market? Because that essentially is you identifying a gap.
So I would start from the fact that having the remote stuff makes it much easier to find the good, talents. It just unlocked geographically. Like if you find some great talent and they're locked in some jurisdiction, and you go like how it's called, like not like by the books, but how the government wants you to work by the books, you would need to establish like employment, blah blah. It's all very expensive actually process and very long. And normally that's why people want to have just one headquarter, one office, but then they're limited with options they have. So this is a huge benefit to the business and one of the differentiator factors. Now, another good thing, like in the software engineering business, the location does make very little value or impact to developer being present. It's actually quite opposite. Developers are way more productive if they are not put into the boundaries of time or location. So by time, I mean like flexible schedule is a must, because if someone is not on the resource, they will just waste your money. You got to pay them for the time spent, but they won't be as productive as they could. So flexible schedule allows, like some of people in my company take Wednesday half day, and I'm totally fine with that, because otherwise I'm just wasting this money. Second, the location, again, getting back to it. A lot of engineers love to travel, and I found like people who spend a lot of time in front of the laptop and being like consciously isolated in this, abstract environment, making them clumsy, by the way. Going out is extremely important, a healthy habit they do not want to do unless they have opportunity. So having remote people and sharing experience from other engineers, like, you know what, I'm going to go to Bali for 6 months and code from there. That sounds so, I would say, it's insane for the engineers who sit in the office day to day. And they think like, for that kind of experience, I must take vacation. Probably their vacation will be higher quality because all of the time they will just rest. But it really you know, demotivates many engineers these days, because now it's kind of trend, you know, like World Nomads program. A lot of European countries actually support that. So this made no negative impact. It did only positive in my business. But I would say it's not for any business. Like a non-software engineer, like if you need to be like very tight in communication, that's not going to work. And more importantly, the challenge of the remote stuff is the discipline. I would say most of the people are not ready or not, let's say, constructed to work in remote space, even some engineers, because if they are not put in check by either process system, they will become lazy, unproductive, or unconsciously like just, how would say...
Just getting by, like doing the bare minimum.
Exactly. So this is a trap, in my opinion, from what I've seen in Australia. Like, I love the fact that it's like slow paced. It's very healthy, actually. And it's good for marathon businesses. Marathon's not a sprint. Even
I
startups.
like that thought. That's true. Like I do view business as a marathon, but yeah, giving your team an environment that they can run the marathon in not just sprint is a really good thought. I like that.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, you don't want to, even your good engineers, burn out and leave. This is the worst thing that can happen. So you want them, you sometimes babysit and nanny them to the point they have healthy, work skill. I had to slow down some engineers that they wanted to work harder and more. I knew that at some point the price will be high and it will impact the business. So here I think the trick is that it requires really high level of discipline. And I think it's a good thing that here in Australia, they try to get people to the offices. It's just for their own benefit and the benefit of, Commonwealth and the economy. It's just the way it will work. It's not too bad in terms of offices like in other countries, like you mentioned, New York or US, working like 2-3 people.
Yeah. No, so in Australia, and people aren't working that hard in Australia to the most part. Like they're not doing giant hours. Like big hours in Australia is like 8 to 6. Like that's big hours. But yeah, I love work from home in terms of in terms of the flexibility and the power it's given entrepreneurs and business owners. Because if I'm a business owner and I want to do work from home because I want to work from home, or because I want my costs to be lower, or because I want to be more attractive to obtain talent, I love that they are able to do that. Like I think it's fantastic. It's not my style of working, because I think that my advantage is always being with people and motivating people and bonding the people so they all become friends. And so, but that's just because that's my style. It doesn't mean that there's no other reason. However, my theory on what's going to happen, and I think the economy is not good. I think it's going to get worse. But my theory is that long term, or at least in the next 12 to 24 months, so not long term, 12 to 24 months, I think all the big businesses are going to end up back in the office. And because when I speak to them and I have actual candid conversations with them and I'm talking to the owners or the CEOs, whatever, I can't find one of them that actually thinks it's more productive at home for those businesses. I can't find one. Like I've tried, and I speak to them. I got a lot of friends and people in my network. But with small business, when you speak to them, they love it. Yeah. They love it. They love work from home. They love the fact their team can work from home. They love the fact that they can spend time with their kids while having a business. They love the fact they don't have to pay for an office and, the big costs that come with that. And they haven't got this big, locked into these long leases with their bank guarantees and all this type of stuff. So I actually reckon big business is going to end up all back in the office, and small business is going to end up almost entirely without offices. And the middle businesses, I just think they're half-half. I think the $2 to $20 million in revenue, I reckon they're going to have offices, but they're not going to have the traditional office. It's going to be like a little bit smaller than what they typically would have with the workstations. It's going to have a little bit of it's going to be in the middle, basically.
Like co-working spaces, like not like the
that's what I think is going to happen. So I reckon, but it's all small. No small business is going to have an office. All big business is going to have an office full time in the office, and the middle businesses are going to be where you find a little bit of a combination. But there's not many middle businesses. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's a very unique thing I found in Australia. I found like it's very saturated. There's a good chunk of big businesses and a good chunk of small businesses and almost no medium businesses. Anytime I found like they go to medium scale, they kind of have other entities in other countries. So I don't know like what it is. It's still a riddle for me to solve, but
our system isn't set up for business to grow well, and our taxes are too high. So once you realize, oh, wait a second, Like once you start doing 20 million in revenue, for example, and you've got decent profits, you realize very quickly they're taking all my money. Mm-hmm. Like that's what you're like. I've literally died for this business. Like I've sacrificed so much of my life. I've helped so many people. I've done all this stuff, and they're basically robbing me. Everything's expensive. Everything's not fair. I'm doing all the effort, and I'm literally being attacked by the government, by the law, by everything.
Yeah.
And then people realize that, and they go, and the system's not set for me to actually grow and do well because we have some fairly big corporate entities that in most sectors that really control a lot of the market too.
Yeah.
But they're big. They don't need the system to work for them because they're already big. They got big when there were less regulations and less all this rubbish. So a lot of the successful entrepreneurs are like, you know what? Like I could stay here, or I could go to countries where they're actually going to serve me as a business owner, where I can actually grow and actually scale. And with the exact same business I have now, if I moved it or just grew there and grew the same thing, I'd be making so much more money. So they're leaving, and that's what happens. Or that's if you want to keep your business. That's if you want to keep your business operating. Like if you want to make profit from your business. If you're looking to sell, it's different. You still have to go overseas anyway to scale, otherwise your valuation is not going to be high enough. But your tax is lower because you're paying capital gains, not income. Mm-hmm. So that's what happens.
Look, I think you're totally right in this matter. And I found that the only way to grow is to find a way how to compensate this default tax. So it's one way, like through this, CTG, capital growth, whatever it is, like taxes.
Capital gains.
Yeah, capital gains. Or there is a way to distribute the expenses through different entities. So that's, I think this
you can, but I just think, people do. My theory is it's just risky. Like you're in the country, you have to make sure you're following the laws.
Yeah.
Because anything ever goes wrong, you need to make sure, look, I've done everything right. Like people can get tricky. I've got a lot of friends that have shown me interesting things and things like that. But then you put so much effort into trying to do that. You're almost better off putting the effort into growing, or even to growing overseas if you wanted. Like there's not a point in. So I'm always like, it's our country. We love it. These are the laws to be in this country. If the laws are so bad for you, you can leave. At the end of the day, but the sad thing is that could happen because if they make it worse and worse and worse and worse, eventually everyone's just going to, the most productive people in our country is all the business people. They're all going to be like, you know what? This just doesn't work for me anymore. I love this country, but I literally can't be myself here. I can't operate. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere else where they actually think. And I get worried that that's going to happen. We're not there yet, but I would love to see a government give a lot more support to small. Big business gets all the support in the world.
Yeah,
they get protected no matter what. But the small businesses, because there's no business union in the sense. There's no there's no. That's what BOA is going to become, I reckon.
That's actually interesting. There is no business union, right?
No, there's not. There's groups out there who do lobbying and things, but they're not made. They don't
speak to government. Well,
they do. No, there are groups who do. There's actually a company called COSBOA, which is like the alliance of all the industry alliances. There was a company called, they're not companies, they're I don't know what you call them, non-for-profits or whatever they are, but there's another one called it was called Business New South Wales or Business Australia. I think maybe it's called Business New South Wales now. They're really good too. But I think BOA is going to become, if we grow the user base, if it keeps growing the way it is and we do a good job, we don't screw it up, I think it could become a great opportunity for us to help, basically to just help government, because government wants to serve business, I feel. It's just that I just think there's complications in that process. But, if there was someone who could actually help the government do it, and help the government execute it and help the businesses, I think they would say yes to that. And that's what I really want. I'd love to do that.
And there's a lot of examples. I mean, if you look in Europe, how they do that.
Yeah.
It's easy. I mean, you can just copy paste the pattern they have. It works. There is no harm to economy, to the budgets. They just help them, give them time. Some of my friends have established business in Portugal. They give them this so-called tax vacation. This is amazing because they, instead of business not happening or dying, they give them time. They become profitable. They actually collect in the net revenue for the entire year much more taxes.
Of course they do. They're hiring all the people and they've got to pay taxes. And businesses typically die early. You know, if you let them get past that early stage into the next stage, their odds of surviving are much greater. The longer they survive, the more taxes they create. So
Exactly.
you know, like that, those tax vacations should be something we adopted. And also we have too many, like the caps of what dictates when tax kicks in, for example, like payroll tax, they're way too low, like especially with current wages, like the way they are. Like it doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'd love to do that. But anyway, we do have to wrap up. Okay. Thank you, man. That was wonderful. We did business, we did Ukraine, and we did Australia. We did a lot in this episode. But why don't we finish with your favorite book? You mentioned you read a lot. What would be your favorite book that you'd recommend people read?
Well, it's a tricky question because I would put several books in that category. But if that would be the one for business owners, I would say E-Myth is the number one because it just helps re-evaluate all your knowledge if you're experienced or help guide you towards what you can get from the business, being an entrepreneur for the newcomers. Other big books that I would recommend, I can just bring a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's more specific. For example, if you look to, like if you're very ambitious soul, Innovator's Dilemma is a great book. It helps you understand that you can change the game significantly.
Innovator's Dilemma.
Innovator's Dilemma, yeah.
Yeah, you know who actually recommended that book as well? Fred Shibesta from Finder.com. That was his book recommendation on the podcast. Vlad, thank you so much, man. That was absolutely awesome. You know, we love having you as a member of Carbon. We're so grateful for your time today.
Thanks. Love being on this podcast. Thanks.
Awesome. Hope you enjoyed the show.